Last week, we visited the National Marine Corps Museum, and this week, we're heading north to Washington, D.C. to check out some memorial sites that you and your scouts are not going to want to miss. Stay tuned. If you're new to this channel, we're on a mission to inspire and inform new scouting parents and adult leaders. And today we're talking about Washington, D.C. as part of our Memorial May series. This series will run the entire length of the month of May, and we're going to be visiting some amazing memorial sites in and around Northern Virginia. In this video, we'll be visiting some of the top memorials around the National Mall. If you don't know what the National Mall is, we're not talking about like the Mall of America.
America's one big mall.
We're talking about that main strip of the nation's capital between the Capitol building and the Lincoln Memorial. Plus, we'll be discussing why you want to bring your scouts or maybe your family to this bucket list location. With that, let's go ahead and get started. The National Mall is where scouting values and American history collide together. Every step you take tells a story about leadership, sacrifice, service, and unity. Think about it. Scouting is all about duty to country, being prepared, and helping others. And here, you see it, you feel it. You're surrounded by monuments dedicated to the people who live those values. It's the perfect setting for working on merit badges, obviously like citizenship in the nation, American heritage, and American culture, or I guess just having meaningful conversations with your pack or troop. Our first stop of the day is at the Washington Monument. This is the tallest structure in Washington, D.C., and is meant to honor our first president, George Washington. It represents leadership and integrity, which are key scouting traits. Designed by Robert Mills, it is built of marble, granite, and bluestone gneiss. It is the world's tallest stone structure, and also the tallest obelisk, standing at approximately 555 feet. You can actually see the change in stone color about 150 feet up, which was the result of a construction pause during the Civil War. Now, if you are wondering, yes, you can go inside of the Washington Monument. This is the entrance right here, and the tickets are actually free. You just have to go ahead and sign up online. Make sure that if you do this, you do log on early because they do sell out every single day. And once you're inside, you'll be able to see out those little tiny portholes at the very, very top to get a bird's eye view of the Lincoln Memorial and the National Capitol. The monument's simple obelisk shape was meant to reflect the timeless strength and stability of Washington's character. No statue of George Washington was placed on top, just a pyramid-shaped capstone engraved with the words Los Deo, which means praise to God. What I find really interesting about the shape of the monument itself being an obelisk is the fact that when you go down to George Washington's resting place, which is at Mount Vernon in Alexandria, you see right in front of his tomb another obelisk, which kind of brings the connection between the monument and his resting place. Just a cool thing that I wanted to point out. Continuing down the mall, we find ourselves at the World War II Memorial. So for a point of reference, we've traveled from here over to here. The World War II Memorial is a significant landmark that honors the 16 million people who served in the American Armed Forces during the World War II conflict, as well as the more than 400,000 Americans who died during that conflict. The monument is located between the Lincoln Memorial and the Washington Monument, making it a central icon to the heart of the National Mall. It was designed by architect Frederick St. Florian and was dedicated on the 29th of May in 2004. After more than a decade of construction and planning. So there are a couple of different symbols and meanings that you're going to want to point out to your scouts to really drive home the importance of this memorial. For example, at the west end sits an arch that symbolizes the country's entry into the World War II conflict after the attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941. And then when you're looking at the memorial itself, you look to the left and the right, you can see the Atlantic and Pacific pavilions. These two pavilions represent the two major theaters of war for World War II. These two pavilions are located on opposite sides of the memorial, but in the center you will find a fountain that your scouts can sit and put their feet in if you happen to be there when the fountain is filled and turned on. This is meant to be a sort of reflecting pool that represents the sacrifice and unity of the American people during World War II. Finally, on the perimeter of the memorial itself, you will find 56 granite pillars. Each one of these pillars is engraved with the name of a state or a territory that contributed to the war effort. Each pillar is topped with a bronze laurel wreath symbolizing victory, and this is also a really cool place where you can go and take a picture with your home state if you happen to be military stationed near Washington, D.C., or you're visiting from out of town. Alright, Matt, but what should I be talking about with my scouts at this memorial? Well, the memorial honors both military personnel who fought in the conflict itself and the home front effort of the civilians, especially the women and workers in the war industry. This is a good chance to remind your scouts about service and sacrifice and unity. This memorial should serve as a reminder of the resilience and sacrifice made by an entire generation to preserve freedom. It's important to point out that the unity of effort is what made this whole war effort so special, because when you are a small contributing factor into a larger vision or goal, you can have a great impact, including winning an entire war, which we're going to talk about later on this month. However, it's also important to point out and remember that we as a nation were not always unified. In fact, we fought an entire civil war because of a divide. And it took the leadership and presence of an individual to bring the nation back together. Which brings us to our next location, the Lincoln Memorial. Standing as a symbol of unity and justice, the Lincoln Memorial echoes scouting values. The Lincoln Memorial honors Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States, best known for leading the country during the American Civil War and abolishing slavery with the Emancipation Proclamation. The structure was designed by architect Henry Bacon, and modeled after the Parthenon in Athens, symbolizing democracy and the enduring principles of ancient civilization.
I love democracy.
Inside, you'll find a 19-foot statue of Lincoln carved by Daniel Chester French. Lincoln is depicted seated and contemplative, symbolizing strength and compassion. Two of Lincoln's most famous speeches are inscribed on the interior walls. This includes the Gettysburg Address and his second inaugural address, both emphasizing unity and healing of the nation. This is a great opportunity for you to pull your scouts aside and have a conversation about unity of effort and also comparing the decisions that Lincoln had to make with scouting values, just to see how they align and maybe even how they're different. Finally, make sure that you talk with your scouts about how the memorial was a backdrop for one of the most iconic events in the 1960s. I'm of course talking about when Forrest Gump gave his famous speech and was reunited with Jenny. Okay, I'm obviously kidding with that one. The Lincoln Memorial is the location of Dr. Martin Luther King's iconic I Have a Dream speech during the 1963 March on Washington, cementing it as a symbol of freedom and civil rights. However, the civil rights movement wasn't the only fight that was going on during that period, which brings us to the Vietnam War Memorial. Designed by Maya Lin, the memorial is sunken into the ground to represent a scar in the earth, encouraging quiet reflection and an emotional engagement. The most iconic part of the memorial is the sunken wall, which bears the name of over 58,000 Americans who died during the Vietnam War, or are still missing in action. It's a powerful and personal tribute. The names on the wall are listed in order of date of casualty, not alphabetically. This design emphasizes the passage of time and the shared sacrifice. You will also see mementos left behind by loved ones, so please ensure that your scouts are being respectful and not taking anything. The V-shaped black granite wall points towards the Lincoln Memorial and the Washington Monument, attempting to tie together American history about leadership and sacrifice. Finally, nearby are the 3 service member statues representing the different ethnic backgrounds of American service members, and you'll also find the Vietnam Women's Memorial honoring the women, mostly nurses, who served during the Vietnam War as well. Also, much like the mementos that were left on the sunken wall, women do leave hair ties at the Women's Memorial, so once again, please ensure that your scouts are being respectful and they don't mess with anything that's left behind. But before we depart the National Mall, there's still one more memorial that we do not want to forget about, even though this is sometimes referred to as the Forgotten War. Designed by Cooper Lecky Architects, the Korean War Memorial was dedicated to those who served during the Korean War from 1950 to 1953. It honors over 1.8 million Americans who fought in what is often called the Forgotten War. So the most striking feature of this memorial is the group of 19 stainless steel statues of service members on patrol. This represents the different branches of the military that served during the Korean War. Their expressions and body language capture the tension and readiness of being out on patrol. An interesting detail that I don't want you guys to miss, and you should point this out to your scouts, is that the black granite wall that runs alongside the service members, it reflects the 19 service members onto the wall itself, equaling 38 service members in total out there at the memorial, which the 30th parallel is what separated North and South Korea during the war. Towards the front of the patrol, you'll see the powerful phrase, "Freedom isn't free," inscribed in stone. This is a great opportunity to sit down and talk to your scouts and remind them that liberty comes at a cost. The memorial also includes a circular pool of remembrance and a wall listing the 22 countries that fought under the UN flag during the Korean War. This place is really moving and serves as a reminder of military service. But speaking of military service, our last location of the day is just right up the road, and some would even say flying high over DC. This isn't the first time we've been to the Air Force Memorial on this channel. Last September, I came up here to witness the Air Force Band perform the Air Force birthday celebration, but if you haven't watched that video, I'll leave it down in the description. While a little bit off the National Mall, the Air Force Memorial is a very inspiring and moving location to bring your scouts. It offers a great view of the Pentagon and Arlington National Cemetery. It is a great final location to kind of cap off your day if you so choose so. So as the day draws to a close, make sure that you take a moment to sit down with your scouts and talk about everything that you've seen today. The different memorials, the people, all the different history that is out here at the National Mall. But most importantly, take a moment to talk about the sacrifice of the individuals whose names are on the walls or in the faces of the different memorials. Because next week, we're going to visit a place that is all about remembering our fallen comrades. And that's going to be Arlington National Cemetery. And I hope you join us next time. With that, I've been Matt with the Roaming Scouter, and I'll see you out there.